Hey guys, welcome to the Field of 68 YouTube channel. If you like what you see here, hit that subscribe button and you'll get more college basketball content just like this. You guys have heard about this. RC, did you know that last year in the first round of the NCAA tournament, Purdue lost to a 16 seed? And then this year, they found a way to make a run and get to the first Final Four for the program since, I believe, 1980. The first Final Four that Matt Painter has ever been to. The first Final Four that Robbie Hummel has ever seen the Boilermakers get in his, like the 17th year he's been associated with that program now. Purdue, 72. Tennessee, 66. Zach Edey, 40 points, 16 boards, 13 for 21 from the floor. I think, Randolph, it was pretty fitting that the way that this game ended was Zach Edey blocking a shot from Dalton Connect. Talk to me about the Boilermakers, man. What a run.
You know what? It's a hell of a run. I always believed they'd be here. But I think you saw the emotions from Zach Edey. We've been around Zach Edey a bunch, and to see how emotional he was about the win, to me, shows that they heard all. You can tell they were still wearing that, that 16-1 defeat in the back of their minds. It was always there, and they felt like they had to get here. So I thought they would. I didn't, bark at any of the noise. I just expect them to be here. We knew Tennessee would be a tough out, and I'm going to stick with what I said. I think it's UConn, Purdue in the championship game, but I think there's interesting matchups either side to have some concern about it. But you got to be happy for those guys, man. We talked about it being a redemption year for those guys to be able to come back and actually do it in those moments. We saw nerves early. I thought schematically the way they played was just great because they adjusted to Tennessee saying, hey, we're going to stay home on everybody else, get physical, play everybody else, and see if Zach Edey can beat us. And what he showed you is if you leave me one-on-one, I'm going to give you a 40-piece and I'm going to take you home. So it's fun to watch. The story's not over. They still got if you're in this thing, you got a chance at winning it. You go into Phoenix, you might as well play to win it. And I think Purdue chances are as good as anyone to upset UConn.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Tennessee just didn't expose Zach Edey defensively, right? Like, that's the one thing when you looked at it, you were like, okay, their bigs couldn't do anything offensively against Zach Edey. Like, he didn't have to work that hard. It was a one-man show. It was Dalton Connect. And really, let's face it, Purdue had no answer for him. Early on, like Braden Smith, you could see like Dalton Connect was licking his chops every time he saw Braden Smith. And then they switched Lance Jones on him. He was better. I mean, definitely it was harder for Dalton Connect to get his, but he was still able to get him. The problem was Zakai Ziegler had an off game, and there was just nobody else. Like, those guys down low couldn't do anything. Anyway, they're not really offensive weapons anyway. And then you put him against Zach Edey, who's wearing him out on the other end, getting him in foul trouble. They're not low post scoring options anyway. And it just turned into the Zach Edey show. They just kept feeding him, getting line, scoring, whatever it was. It was Matt Painter's way of showing, like, hey, again, we've done this all year. We're not going to change what we do. If you double them, our guys will make shots. They didn't make them tonight. Those guys didn't make shots. What did they shoot? 3 for 15 from 3? And they still won.
Yeah, it was that was the thing that stood out to me is that it felt like there were a number of moments where Purdue was getting ready to kind of give this thing away because it was a missed open three here, a missed open three there, a dumb turnover here, dribbling it off your foot, and Zakai Ziegler picks it up and goes, gets one of the pick six turnovers and gets a layup at the other end, right? It felt like it was one of those things where you just waiting for the inevitable that happens with Purdue in these situations. And it kind of turned into, well, Zach Edey's not going to let that happen. So let's throw the ball into him. Who cares about anything else that's happening? We got this big fellow. We got the best player in the country. We got the most dominant physical presence that we've seen in college basketball in the generation. Give him the ball, let him cook, and they did. And I'm so happy for those guys, right? Like I'm happy for Painter. I'm happy for Hummel. I'm happy for Zach Edey. I'm happy for all the guys that were on that team last year that dealt with that. Let's just call it what it is, the embarrassment of losing to a 16 seed in the first round. They've taken a lot of heat. They've heard a lot of stuff said about them over the course of the last year. and they've been nothing but professional about it. They haven't clapped back. You haven't seen them going at people on Twitter. You haven't seen them calling people out. They just went back to work and they found a way to get it done, and they got it done. I thought Braden Smith was phenomenal tonight. Goodman, you mentioned how Dalton Connect was kind of picking on people. What Tennessee was doing offensively was they were running ball screens to try to get a switch so that Dalton Connect was guarding Braden Smith, and then they ran a ball screen with Braden Smith and Zach Edey, and they got like 3 or 4 baskets in the last 6 minutes doing that, a couple lobs to Edey. So they were picking on Dalton Connect too, and it wasn't just throw the ball into the big guy in the paint and let him cook. But I think that we talked about this last week, and I think you might have been on the show, Randolph. I don't understand the hatred that Zach Edey gets. Like, I get where Indiana fans are not going to love this dude. I get how Big Ten fans might be like, yeah, fuck this guy, right? But I don't understand why the nation at large is like pushing back on a kid that is one of the most wonderful stories that we have in college basketball. He didn't start playing until he was 15, ends up being back-to-back National Player of the Year, takes a team from losing the first round to a Final Four in his second season. He is a guy that is nothing but generous with his time. He is one of the Goodman. You know him better than both of us. One of the best kids that you're going to find when it comes to like how good he is. There's absolutely no ego there when you're dealing with him. And the idea that people don't like him just because he's so good and so big and so strong and it's impossible to stop him without fouling him, it's just like, it's baffling to me, man. I want to celebrate it. I want to celebrate watching him thrive.
He doesn't talk trash. Man. Listen, he doesn't really talk trash. He rarely gets mad at the officials. Like you said, off the court, he's about as good as it gets. I don't get it either. But I think, again, it's just, opposing teams getting frustrated because they feel like he gets every call. And, yeah, he gets some. But trust me, he's on the other side of it as well. He doesn't get a ton of them. Probably more than on the other end of it. So I don't get it. It pisses me off.
I want to talk about that, Jeff. Randolph, I want to go to you because you've coached and you played and you probably have a better feel than Jeff and I do on this. I feel like, look, obviously there were, 25 fouls called against Tennessee, 12 fouls called against Purdue today. I think Zach Edey drew, it was like 12 or 13 fouls himself. I feel like that is just the byproduct of having a guy that is 7'4", that is 300 pounds, that is exceptionally strong and coordinated when it comes to being able to move his body. Like, most 7-footers can't move the way that he moves in terms of like how smooth he is. And when you put all that together, it's borderline impossible to stop. And the only way to do it is to just kind of like hang off of him. It's like, imagine if you're a little brother trying to stop your big brother in the post. It's basically impossible to do without fouling. And then throw in the fact that they're throwing the ball into the paint to him every single time with the goal of either getting fouled or making a layup. Like, you run the ball through Dalton Connect, he's not trying to get to the line. He's trying to hit a jumper. Who's going to get fouled more? Like, the idea that there's this conspiracy to put Zach Edey on the free throw line more than anybody else. Like, if you say to me, Purdue gets all the calls, Zach Edey's officiated unfairly, I immediately know that you don't know ball. That's just my assumption.
Let me go back and say this. If you don't like Zach Edey, then you shouldn't be watching college basketball because it isn't a nicer kid in college basketball. I mean, he's just as nice of a kid as DJ Burns is. And I've been around both of those guys. I obviously know DJ Burns a little different. Their personalities are different, but you guys know when we're around Zach Edey and you talk to him, he lights up and he has way more personality than what he shows. He's legitimately he's a gentle giant is what he is. But he's a dominant player. He's a throwback player. So it's not pretty and it's not what people nowadays are accustomed to seeing. So you don't know what to make of it. He's the most dominant player in the game, and he dominates it on both ends of the floor. And I've told you guys this before. I think he should have been. He should be in the more in the conversation for Defensive Player of the Year because I think he controls the paint when he's there. Now you try to pull him out in ball screens and you're taking jump shots. He's getting point blank layups. He's gonna punish your bigs. If you front him, he's gonna walk you up the line. They're gonna throw it over. You got no help. And if you double him, he's throwing it over the top, and the other guys are getting in. Tennessee tried to say, "Hey, stay home. You go 1-on-1." And he did, and he started dominating that. Then when he fouls your guys out, then you're forced to rotate, trap, do all those other things. I thought the game flipped when Tennessee went up. I think it was 32-21. and they blew it. I thought they blew it then because you lost the lead before the half. I mean, that lead went so quick.
Right.
And I'm saying to myself, wow, you're not going to get enough possessions in this game to just walk this team down. I thought that was when the game flipped, and I thought, okay, they got a chance. They at least needed to go into the half with the lead and not burn it away as quickly as they did and go down. I thought that was just the biggest mistake at that point, I didn't think they would win, and the game ended up being a lot closer. Like, I actually thought Purdue was going to walk away with it when they gave that 11-point lead away.
Yeah, for sure. Jeff, the one thing, real quick, because I want you to react to this, because I think that moment, when they came back, when they made that run, like, that was one of those times where I feel like a year ago, maybe 2 years ago, past Purdue teams wouldn't make that run. They get punched and they kind of roll over, right? Past Purdue teams would take an 8-point lead, blow it, let Tennessee get the lead back, and that would be it. Then they kind of stop getting buckets, wouldn't be able to get stops, and all of a sudden that thing would turn into an 8-point deficit, kind of like what we saw with Duke tonight, right? To me, I think we saw a different level of heart, level of determination, level of leadership. There is I don't even know the way there's a determination, I guess is probably the best way to say it, with Zach Edey, with Braden Smith, with that program we haven't seen before. I was so, because that Tennessee team is damn good. Damn good.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's one of those things where they've been thinking about that lost FDU for a year, right? And once you got past that first round game, you can exhale a little bit. It takes a little bit of pressure off. Now there's pressure again, but you're seeing kind of the end game now, right? It was that first round game, just get past it, and then you can play a little bit looser. Here's what I'll say too. I think you said it. Braden Smith's line doesn't blow you away today. I think he had 9 points, 7 assists, 7 rebounds. But his play is so much better than it was last year, and for a variety of reasons. But here's one that I don't think is talked about enough, right? Like, he's mentally tougher. We know that. He missed before his freshman year. He missed a ton of time recovering from an injury, so he really didn't play in the preseason. He wore down. He didn't have help, all that. Here's the area where I think he's really improved at. Getting the ball to Zach Edey where he needs it. Being comfortable, being familiar with where Zach Edey needs the ball. Like last year, there weren't a ton of lobs like he throws now. Now, there were a couple miscommunications today, but for the most part, those guys are on the same page this year, so much better than they were even at the end of last year. And I think it's Braden Smith playing with a guy that, again, who plays with 7'4" guys as a point guard. It takes time to get used to that.
I think Jeff, what's funny you say about that. What he's done is he's just comfortable, and he the ball's in his hands. He feels like, he looks like the guy now. Like, this is my team. Like, I'm driving this bus. Yep. This is Zach Edey's bus, no doubt about it. He's the guy, but I'm the guy behind the wheel that's making this thing go. He looks more comfortable in pressure. Like, coming into the tournament last year, people always say, "Oh, you feel like you can get up under him. You feel like you can speed him up. You feel like you can pressure him." And this year, he didn't take a lot of shots, but he controlled this and got them in their stuff. And they beat Tennessee. This isn't the Tennessee team that we saw coming into the tournament in a sense of offensively. They made 11 threes. They wasn't this dreadful team from behind the arc where you were like, oh, man, Tennessee can't buy a three-point shot. All right, they shot better from 3 than they did from 2. And that's my point when I say the Zach Edey effect, man. I've been saying that all year long, and I'll continue to say that. He just finds a way defensively to control the paint, and it's hard for you to make 40 minutes of making jump shots. And that's what they do to you. And whether they're making shots or not, because if they're making a decent amount of threes, you're not beating them. They're that team. And I think that's what the finals are going to – I think that's what it's going to be about as we go forward with all of these teams. It's going to be essentially, except for Alabama, it's going to be dominated with the bigs. And how many threes or the supporting cast comes along, because I know we're not talking about UConn. And you saw me – I tweeted this yesterday. UConn is only 11 for 61. In the last, you take away that Stetson game, they're 11 for 61 from 3. And they're not shooting it, and they're playing differently. But when teams start slowing the game down, if their three-point shooters don't start knocking down shots, you got a game. And you got a guy now on the other side, either team, that can give Klingon something, foul trouble, give him something to work. He's going to have to guard. He won't have the physical mismatch that he's had all along, and that's the thing that's so intriguing about the matchup. But I thought Tennessee came to play. They just, we just saw a dominant player. I think the 2-time National Player of the Year, back-to-back Player of the Year, just putting his team on his back and doing what great players do.
You mentioned the defensive thing. I just one point I want to make. I saw somebody today that was making the point that Zach Edey doesn't get enough blocks. Like, why doesn't he block enough shots? Why doesn't he do this? Why isn't he putting up these ridiculous block numbers if he's 7'4"? If you're watching what he's doing, it is the shots that are not taken in and around the bucket, right? It is the times when guys are coming off of those ball screens, and against someone that is 6'10", they'd be able to get that little 8-foot to 10-foot pull-up jumper, that little floater, right? Where they're not able to get that shot off because of the length that Zach Edey has. Every time somebody drives in the lane, does like the Nash dribble around underneath the rim, gets stuck on the other side of the basket and kicks it out. That is Zach Edey's impact right there. You do not get the shot around the rim that you're able to get. He doesn't get blocks because guys are smart enough not to shoot it around him. That's what it is. So that's where you get the level of rim protection. And I just wanted to make that point because it feels like that's something that he gets criticized for a little bit. Listen, thank you for watching the Field of 68. If you've enjoyed what you've seen here, hit that like button, share this link with your friends, or check out the description for some other places that you can consume Field of 68 content.